Of those 374 people, there was 12 families completely eradicated from the face of the earth. Okay guys, just 5 kilometers out of town, probably isn't even that far, it didn't seem that far, is at the base of these mountains, Tham Piu Cave. For many years during the Indochina War, the Secret War, while this area was being mass bombed, 4 villages made their homes in the cave here. There was an extensive cave system in the base of these mountains, 300 meters long, with other chambers leading off it. And for 4 years the people had built a community in there. They had classrooms, living chambers, a medical area, small hospital, kitchen, spring water seeped up through the rocks in the cave there. And the only time they ventured out was into these rice fields you've seen us passing when travelling out here, not far, and even then it was at night. You know, the 4 villages nearby here, just about everybody had set up home in these caves, and for 4 years they were there. There's this young boy, 13-year-old Neenee, who was at the mouth of the cave one day, and he heard this massive explosion, and from his home village, just all this smoke, fire. Not everybody had moved into the caves. You know, some of the people didn't want to leave. Some of the older people, this is their land, they just wanted to stay there. His grandfather had stayed behind, so he left. He bolted towards his home village, and his whole village was on fire. His home was on fire. His grandfather was badly injured. He came back and got his auntie, and they've gone there to tend to his grandfather's injuries, and for 3 days they looked after his grandfather. That wasn't the tragedy of this site though. While they were tending to the old man's injuries, an American fighter pilot had come over, and he had seen movement in around these bushes at the mouth of the cave, and he had fired a missile into the area. First missile going astray, missing, fired another one and hit close to the entrance of the cave, you know, which cleared the front of the cave so he could see the tunnel of the cave there. The third missile he launched went directly into the mouth of the cave and exploded in a living chambers in there. 374 people called the cave home. 374 people were in there that day, and in an mass explosion, the cave just came down, wiping out 374 souls. Of those 374 people, there was 12 families completely eradicated from the face of the earth, from baby to grandmother. Nobody from 12 families survived. That is the tragedy of Muang Kham, of Tham Piu Cave. Civilians in there, that was their home to escape the bombing. They were living off rice and tending their crops by night so they couldn't be seen. And they're actually firing into caves. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? Being the person, you know, to do that. You know, war is war, I understand. You know, and this poor man who actually done it, is he aware of what he was doing? You know, a part of me wants to think he didn't. You know, imagine having to live with that. It's just hard to imagine how a call like that can be made. It's not a military installation. There is no military equipment or anything around. It's just rice farmers with their buffalo, their pigs, their cattle. People trying to escape the war. The few people who weren't inside the cave, nobody inside the cave survived. Nobody. You have the fortunate few who were out at the moment who survived. It took them 4 days to dig the bodies out. They couldn't take them far. They couldn't burn them in the traditional way because the smoke would attract more planes to the area. All they could do was bury them in the craters that were already here around the mouth of the cave. Took them 4 days to dig the bodies out. And we're about to go in and look at where all this unfolded. But very somber feeling here, guys. It is. 30,000 kip if you're a foreigner to get in, 5,000 kip if you're a local. Dual pricing like that, I have no problem with. You'll find dual pricing at the Plain of Jars. There's only a few places in Laos that do dual pricing, and it's usually at military, has things to do with the war, like Vientiane caves. That was the same, yeah. But it's not a huge difference. 30,000 kip for a farang. Less than 3 Aussie bucks, 2 US to come and view it. But these people were just unfortunate to be living in this area close to Ponsavan and where most of the fighting was happening. It was the front, wasn't it? For 4 years. 4 years they lived in these caves, harvested their fields at night. That's a long time to be living in a cave system, isn't it? You know, there would have been children born, 3-4 year old, knew nothing else. You know, and I often wonder in amazement, you know, Neenee, you know, she was born in a cave. Her first 4 or 5 years of her life was hiding in the forest, going from cave to cave with her family. It's just incomprehensible. You know, we just can't imagine what it would be like, can we? Now, it's one thing hearing stories like this and what these people endured, but to actually have lived it is something totally different altogether. It wouldn't have been an easy feat going down to their rice fields through the night and that either, because as you can see, this cave isn't at ground level. You can see how high we've climbed up and down through here. I don't think we're too far away now though. Before it was fired upon, going from the information I gathered, there was a lot more foliage, a lot more jungle around here which obscured the mouth of the cave. That's why it wasn't detected for so long. Let's see how far we can go back before we lose too much light. But on paying at the entrance, there was no mention of needing a torch. Or I'm guessing a lot of this rubble would have been from the roof coming down during the explosion and them having to dig the bodies out. Which makes you question, is the blackened rocks due to the smoke and fire and explosion? We're only about 50 metres in, and this cave had a depth of 300 metres. Yeah, very hard to see anything beyond here, guys, without proper torch or equipment. It does get very steep there. Don't know how far it continues down or how far the cave is still intact. You're not going to see much. I've tried showing you guys caves before. All you see is the pinpoint of a torch, don't you, and what it's hitting, but you do get a fair idea of how enormous this cave was. And to be home to a community of 374 people who were just wiped out in a flash. The mind-boggling thing to me is, 12 families that existed were just wiped out. Just don't exist anymore. No trace of them today. When I first read the article, the information, I thought, geez, they're big families to consist of 374 people, 12 families, but no, it was upon thinking about it, and Neenee actually pointed it out, among those 374 people were 12 families that just don't exist anymore. From the youngest to the eldest, there was no survivors outside like some of the other people that lost their lives in here did have others that had refused to come into the cave system, who were out probably fighting the war, out in the fields at the time. They still have members alive today, but 12 families just don't exist now.
And to take the dead body to ferry around,
Yeah, they couldn't take them far because of the war. The war did not stop because of this. The war was going. They had to bury their dead while it was still raging. And they ended up burying their dead in 3 or 4 craters that had pockmarked the earth just down off the side of this mountain. Tham Piu Cave. Vientiane is 77 kilometres from Muang Kham. If you've got the time, it is well worth a visit. Come and learn a bit about the people and the history of this place. They were just farmers seeking refuge from a war.